The internet removed barriers to start businesses. This was Web 1. This was the information superhighway. Web 2.0, the interactive social web, removed barriers to connection. You know, there's good and bad to social media. The mobile web, maybe that's Web 2.5, removed all types of barriers of location and the ability to purchase. Think about Bluetooth and QR codes that we use today. And then the cloud, everything moving from the desktop to the cloud, removed barriers of collaboration. Zoom, we talked about a minute ago, and virtual conferencing, virtual meetings. And it's not going to end there. But generative AI, this narrow AI that we have today, which is the least effective AI you will ever use, it'll never be this, limited ever again, because it's growing at such a rate, that exponential rate. This generative AI is removing barriers to creation. From not just compute power, which is the driver of much of it, or networks and the network effect. And we could talk about the blockchain and how powerful it will be when we have a real Web3 world on a ubiquitous, immutable blockchain that's open and transparent. That's another presentation. But augmented reality, virtual reality, 3D printing, driverless cars. Real driverless cars are happening in San Francisco, by the way. Drones, flyable drones with humans on board. And robotics. I want to talk a lot about the growth of robotics and what's happening with another race to build humanoid robots that you'll have in your house in the very, very near future, just like the Jetsons of my childhood. But Peter talks about the 6Ds of these exponential changes, being digitized, things that went from atoms to pixels, newspapers, online. The idea that it is deceptive. It's hard for our brains to recognize these doubling step functions, but it's happening. And the scary news, folks, is it's compressing. It's going to go from doubling to something more than doubling, quadrupling, as we get closer and closer to what science fiction writers call the singularity. It is disruptive. It's all disruptive because it's changing businesses. Blockbuster Video was disrupted by Netflix. The taxi industry was disrupted by Uber. Things have already been demonetized, and you're going to see prices go to near zero. Think about storage, digital storage that might have cost hundreds, and for me, in that late 1980s, thousands of dollars for a few megabytes now can cost pennies or be free for a few megabytes. And this idea of being dematerialized isn't just a takeoff from Gene Roddenberry and Star Trek. When you step into the transporter, we have dematerialized a lot of our work. Ever since the post-COVID experiment where people are working from home, instead of physically showing up in the office, which still has a lot of advantages, I believe, we have opted to show up digitally, to show up remotely through web conferencing, and Zoom is a great example of that. And all of this gives us unbelievable benefits for democracy. Just think about the simple reality of a young teenager in a third world country with a mobile phone connected to the internet. What he or she can do with that device, accessing today's technology, artificial intelligence being maybe the pinnacle, that young person, maybe of poverty, has the same intellectual power of a multimillionaire or billionaire in the United States or in Europe or any other country. That's the democratization, where everyone has access to these tools. It's a level playing field, unlike anything we've ever experienced in all of humanity. So this is why I urge all of you in the audience today, all of you really need to say, this is a job to experiment with these tools, where you'll have the proverbial first mover advantage. That old term from the 1990s where we had Web 1.0, it was the early companies that did have a distinguishable advantage by being first. Now the consumer, the user, the business leader, the business owner can have an incredible advantage of being first, because you'll understand how to use the next wave of tools that is right around the corner. I believe, like Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, I believe this will be the most productive decade in human history.